get a message that you're being recorded, but
Okay.
and I was gonna drop this link over there for you too. I don't know if you want to share it. You don't have to, but this is our broadcast.
Oh, it's live, right?
Yeah, it's live just for my patrons. I mean, it's unlisted, but you can share it if you want to.
Sure.
And
And this
yeah.
was a top 5, if I recall, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Top five honorable mentions, but no more because we could go crazy.
Oh, so we're doing 10 basically.
Yeah, we'll do. I mean, we do the top five, and then at the very end, you just kind of list your honorable mentions. So
Sure. That's fine.
we'll go back and forth, and we'll like talk somewhat in depth about our five picks. But then when we get to the honorables, you just kind of list them. Like these are the ones that almost made it, but not quite.
Right. I totally get it.
Yeah, I know it's been a couple years since you came on for A24, but same concept.
Yeah. It's been a
Dude,
minute. That's
I've been going through
good.
the MVP crew, man. I got Dan on recently, which was
I
awesome.
know. Emma told me that you contacted her.
Yeah, Emma's coming on next week actually. She
Nice.
she has a really she came up with a really good topic for voice acting performances. So I'm gonna have to do my research.
Oh,
That that could be an interesting top five.
there's
So
a lot of different ways that can go. So that's pretty cool.
yeah, no doubt. All right, man. You're good to go. Do you need to do anything, or are you all set?
I am just doing one other quick thing. If you would just
Yep,
give me
sure.
one more second, I'm almost there.
Of course, brother. Appreciate you making the time to do this. I know it's been crazy lately.
Oh, yeah, it's been pretty insane.
And thanks for doing the Golden Peas segment too. That was cool.
Yeah, no
Yeah,
worries.
that was great.
Hold on, I'm almost there. I'm almost done. I just didn't have my I didn't have 5 runner-ups, so I'm just
Oh yeah,
going
no
through.
problem. Take your time,
Yeah,
man. No problem.
I almost got it. I only need 2 more.
Yeah, you're
So I'm
good,
just
dude.
looking. I'm just looking through now. Okay, definitely that. Definitely that. And that's 1, 2. All right, one more. I would say, oh boy. Hmm, one more. Yeah. Okay.
You've been doing okay with the YouTube stuff?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. I'm not really putting in a lot of effort into it, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
because it's just so much on top of everything else.
No, it is.
So our
It is for
videos are
sure.
not like they're not fancily, edited, and it's all just very basic shit.
Yeah, well, like I told you on Twitter, I mean, you have a concept too where you can kind of take it easy like that too. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
just an interview style show in a lot of cases, and people will tune in if they're interested in the person you're interviewing. So that's really all you need. It's
right.
more content. So
Yeah. All right, I'm ready to go whenever you're ready, and you want me to share it as you said, right?
yeah, I mean, if you want to, you don't have to, but
All right, where's the link?
I thought I dropped it to you over on Twitter. No,
Or on Twitter. Okay.
yeah, I dropped it to you over on the in the chat.
All right. Got it here.
We'll talk some
Okie dokie.
neon movies, man. All right, dude, just give me like 5 or 10 seconds of silence, and then I'll
Hmm.
come in, do the intro, and we'll do our top fives, and we'll talk through it, man. Okay, so just hang tight.
Yep.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of the main show, Two Peas on a Podcast. I'm so thrilled that you joined us again this week. And I am also extremely thrilled for the guest I have on. It's been a couple years. Me and this guy talk, it feels like almost every day about movies on Twitter, social media. I love this guy, especially during award season, but year round, he's just a glorious dude to follow over there. Matt from Next Best Picture is back on the show. What's up, Matt? Welcome back, man.
What a lovely introduction. I appreciate that so much. I cannot begin to tell you. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a minute, like you said, but man, I'm too busy. I
You
don't know
are.
what I work myself to
You're
death,
wild.
and I was telling somebody earlier, I like this is our off season right now, post Oscars.
Right.
I should not be this busy currently. I should be taking it easy, sitting on a
I
beach
know.
somewhere.
I know. I mean, I hit you up. I waited till like, we went through award season, which was just it's always so crazy.
Mhm.
It's going through March, like bring it back a little bit, February, maybe. I don't know. We'll see where it goes. But anyway, it goes on so long. And I know you're so busy, man, with Next Best Picture. And it's my favorite outlet during award season. Like I
Thank you.
immediately go to NBP for like any information that I need, any predictions. So I love following you guys during award season, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, this guy has got to be exhausted. I mean, it's just so much. You guys are relentless over there. And I really, as a movie fan, as an awards fan, I just want to say thank you. You guys are killing it.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, truly. I definitely do work myself to the bone,
Yeah.
and I don't give myself a breather, but it's all for the audience. My guiding principle is always just thinking back to being younger and not having an outlet, not knowing where to go for this information, and
Right.
wanting to discuss this stuff and wanting to dive deeper into the joys that is not just award season, but just movies in general.
Right.
And I always think about who is that person out there today that is looking for an outlet that is going to be able to cater towards that desire. And so that's all that I'm just trying to bring to people.
Well, you're doing a great job, man. You and the team over there. I commend you for sure. And as a fan, like I said, it's awesome to be a part of it. So keep doing what you're doing. Now, Matt, when you came on a couple years ago, I hit you up, and it must have been post award season, I'm sure back then too. But I said, I was a fanboy of A24. I still am, and I love their movies. And there's just something about the brand A24 that just really just is magnetic for me personally. And so we did a top five, and it was right around when The Green Knight came out. I remember that at the time. So it's been a couple years, but we're kind of doing something similar this evening. So first of all, I apologize. I promise I'm going to have you on for something that's non-movie studio related. But here we are again, another kind of hip, influential, up and coming. Although they've definitely made it. I don't want to give away any titles quite yet because we're going to get into them. But tell everyone, what is the top five tonight? What are we counting down tonight?
We are counting down our top 5 favorite neon films. You see
That's
what I did
right.
there? I tried to do like a neon glow or
With
something.
the
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what that was just now, but
That was fine. No, you improvised. You did good. Yeah, our top five from the Neon Studios catalog. So, talk to me a little bit about what you think they've been able to do. I got a couple just basic facts. They were founded in 2017, so they're
Mhm.
fairly new. I mean, they're only 6 years
Yes.
old. By
No.
Tim League, who also
Mhm.
founded Alamo Drafthouse, or was a co-founder for Alamo Drafthouse. So I
Right.
love this dude. I love both of those things. What do you think about
Absolutely. Yeah.
Neon? Where do they fit in the whole story right now, cinematically?
Well, I mean, I think that when people think of neon, they immediately probably think of A24 and how the
Mhm.
two, in a lot of ways, are very similar companies. I think A24 very much has a brand more so than anything as far as like the types of films that they typically tend to produce. But Neon, while they don't have that established brand quite yet, there's a similar type of film that does go there. It's not high budgeted,
Right.
glossy studio type of project. You're getting stuff from artists that ultimately represent what I guess Martin Scorsese would define as cinema.
Sure.
And a lot of the times it has a very independent, scrappy feeling to it, while also highlighting what I think is very bold storytelling. There's a lot of really, really great titles from Neon. I would never go so far as to say that they are a mainstream studio,
Right.
but I wouldn't say that they are discount A24 either. It's not like, oh, A24 doesn't want this, it's going to go to Neon.
Right.
I don't see it that way. I see them both like kind of on an equal level playing field. The only difference is A24 just has a more established brand.
Sure. Yeah. More
Um,
recognizable in that way. Yeah.
and I think Neon is still kind of finding itself a little bit in terms of what their brand is.
Well, I just want to tell you, I agree with what you said. I just want to tell you though, I knew we were going to do this topic, and I sent you that link from the Neon website that has all their films that have been released theatrically and so on. And I'm going through it, and there's two things that I want to mention to you as Mr. NBP. I probably half of them are probably a blind spot for me that I just
Mm.
haven't seen. A few that I hadn't even heard of as I was going through the catalog, but the ones that I have seen in the Neon catalog are like fucking bangers. Like they're
Yes.
all like 4 to 5 star movies, like some of my favorite films in their respective years. So I don't know if that's the case with their entire catalog because there's several that I haven't seen, but I just feel like the quality is so high on the Neon catalog. Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely think the quality is completely there, and whether it's something that is going to make it into like my top 10 at the end of the year, or if it's just something that I particularly really like, I find that there's always a lot of merit within their films, and they're usually a studio that the minute I see their name is attached to something, I have to stand up and take notice.
Hmm.
So for me, um, especially as someone who is strapped for time and usually trying to work his way through what film is going to be worth my time, I do make time for Neon films. Literally all of them, whether they're a
Yep.
documentary or if they're foreign language films. I try to watch usually every title that they put out on a yearly basis.
Yeah, I could see why. I mean, like I said, the quality is just astounding. I mean, I'm not even joking you. Every movie on that list that I sent you that I've seen, I love.
Yeah.
So, in that respect, I'll ask you real quick because my answer is it was pretty difficult to narrow this down to five. We do have some honorable mentions, but I mean, to get that five that I wanted to really talk about tonight was somewhat tough because I had to leave some out. What about coming up
Mhm.
with your list, Matt? Was this easy for you or was it kind of a daunting task?
No, this was easy for me. Here's the thing about Neon is that they don't produce that many films per year, and they also haven't been around that long. So for me, it was very easy to narrow it down. I also know which films made it into my top 10 in their respective years, which films
Sure.
were
Yeah.
close, and which films over time I've rewatched and I've come to really enjoy and love. I had one year fairly recently, actually, where Neon, I think, had three films in my top 10 for
Hmm.
that year. So
Wow.
they had a really, really good
Yeah.
run with me in particular.
Yeah. I think me too. I think we might have a little bit of crossover tonight because there's one movie I'm just head over heels for that I know you loved also because, we follow each other and I'm familiar with your take on it as well. And then maybe one or two other ones. I got to be honest, it might be crossover crazy tonight, which is
Mhm.
completely fine. I know your pool is a little bit deeper because you've probably seen, if not all of these, most of them. But like I said, there's about half in the Neon catalog that I haven't put eyes on yet. So
I was
I
gonna
do
say
want to
I was
check them
looking
out.
at the list earlier, and I don't think there's a single Neon film I haven't seen.
Oh, great. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me necessarily, but you're you, man. You're Matt. So I know you're doing your thing over there. You're watching movies. That's what you do.
I'm
All
trying.
right, man. All right, man. Well, you're doing your thing. All right, let's get into our top fives, Matt. So I'm going to let you kick us off. What is your top five movie from Neon?
Starting at number five, the first film on the list here is an indie film that had its world premiere at the Sundance Film Festival in 2019, directed by Julius Ona. It is a movie that introduced me to Kelvin Harrison Jr. It's called Loose, and it
Mm,
stars Naomi Watts, Octavia Spencer, Tim Roth, and Kelvin Harrison Jr. in this extraordinary breakthrough role. This was a movie that was very much grounded, I felt like, within reality, that presented a very fascinating character study while also diving into some very topical, complex societal issues of what it means to be a young Black man in today's society. And the performance from Octavia Spencer, especially as
mhm.
this teacher that judges Luce due to the color of his skin, is something that I thought was very well handled by Octavia Spencer. I thought it was one of her best performances she's ever given, and I was really, really sad to see that she couldn't get awards traction out of it. Um, and here he is, like this exceptionally gifted kid who has everything going for him in life, and he is the adoptive son of two white parents, Tim Roth
Mm.
and Naomi Watts, and it's just all about like this brewing tension that is just honestly putting pressure on this young man to be something that society is telling him he should be, but then also discovering for himself who he should ultimately be. And if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's a really, really, really great showcase for all of these actors. Very clever writing. I was knocked on my ass by it the first time I saw it, and I appreciated it every single time I've watched it since.
Yeah, this is one that I have seen. I saw it on streaming, I feel like. I didn't
Mhm.
see it initially. I saw it later on, but I really enjoyed this film. I feel like what surprised me about it is I found out later that it was based on a play. Is that right? And
If I
this mo
remember correctly, I think it is. Yeah.
and
Mhm.
this movie does not play, no pun intended, that way, which I really thought was really cool because a lot of times they'll get caught in that trap where the film is too, play-like or too kind of staged, if you will. And I didn't get that from this at all, the vibe in this movie. And I feel like there was a little bit of a psychological kind of thing going on throughout
Mhm.
in the through line through this film too. You're kind of trying to
Yes.
figure out if there's some, stuff going on in the shadows, if you will, which
Mhm.
was always kind of there. And I agree, Octavia Spencer absolutely nailed it, man. She was so good in this movie. I need to revisit it, but that's one that I've seen and that I did really enjoy. So great
Yeah.
pick to get us started, man. Loose. All right. Well, Matt, you know this, and all my listeners know this too, but I'm a horror guy. But shockingly, this is the only time that horror is going to really show up on my list. Although I do have one of my honorable mentions that kind of toes the line, but it's going to be Brandon Cronenberg's Possessor,
Oh
my number
man.
five.
Woo.
Yeah, just such an experience. I mean, taking from his father, who I'm also a huge fan of, but the film has so many amazing performances in it, and just aside from the performances, though, just like the visuals and the aesthetic, and just this mind fuck that thrill ride that Cronenberg takes you on is just something that is unforgettable in my opinion. I've seen this movie like 3 or 4 times. I've
Mhm.
rewatched it and it was one of my favorite movies of that year across any genre. And I
Mhm.
just love how it just sticks with you. It kind of just like gets under your skin and like I said, you can't forget about it for days, or at least I couldn't. It's just such a memorable kind of visually stunning experience. And then you add the performances on top of that and the direction is uncanny. I love this one. I'm excited to hear what you think about it. So, Possessor is my number five.
I mean, this was a gnarly movie that, I still think that Brendan is kind of struggling a little bit to get out of the shadow of his father,
Oh,
which
for
is a
sure. Yeah.
little unfortunate. But I think stylistically, in terms of what he does with sound, with the camera, on a technical level, I actually think that he has surpassed his father, if you ask me.
Okay.
His screenplays need a little bit of work. That's my only complaint here. But I still think that Possessor is his best movie to date, thematically in terms of the way that it's written. I was very, very, very shocked when I saw this at how gory it was,
Yeah.
and I shouldn't have been, but it still managed to shock me regardless. I also remember watching this at Sundance at midnight,
Oh, wow.
and I remember struggling to figure out how I was going to get home after the screening, which has nothing to do with the movie at all. But this is just my
Right.
memory of watching it.
Sure. Yeah.
And so throughout the entire movie, I'm watching it, and I was like, I was stressed, thinking, "How am I getting home after this? How am I getting home?" And then as the movie was going, I quickly forgot about all of that, and I was
Hmm.
just engrossed just from the first scene on, because it was just such a high concept, sci-fi,
Yeah.
techno kind of thriller in a way that also dealt with body horror. I mean, I had a blast watching that movie. That movie was awesome.
Yeah. I love it too, man. And I love the 4K. I throw it on at least once or twice a year. And it's one of my favorites in that kind of like horror sci-fi kind of marriage to come out of recently that I've really enjoyed. So it's my number five. I had to throw it in my top five. It barely made the cut. You'll find out why when I get to my number six later on. But
Okay.
as we continue through the list, what is your number four, Matt?
Number four is a period film from Celine Sciamma called Portrait of a Lady on Fire. This is a
Hmm.
movie that I thought should have gotten way more awards attention than it received the year it came out. I think it is a modern masterpiece. It's been included on the Sight and Sound Critics Poll as one of the greatest films of all time. And while some people rolled their eyes at the inclusion of some new films on that list this past year. I thought that Portrait of a Lady on Fire deserved its spot. It is this queer romance story between two women played brilliantly by Noemi Merlant and Adele Hanel. And I felt like the cinematography in that movie was unlike anything I had, quite frankly, had ever seen before. So visually, it was stunning. But the way that Celine Sciamma lets the story unfold and play out in a way where just by mere glances and tones of silence, there's so much that's conveyed with so little. And there is this like agony underneath like the performances, but also to these moments of lightness and true beauty. I find that a lot of times with Forbidden Love, like there's a lot of tropes that get repeated time and time again, but here it felt fresh and it felt different and presented in a way that I'm not one for slow cinema. I'm not one for quiet movies. Like that's usually not my thing, but I was completely engrossed in this from beginning till end. And if you or anyone has not seen this yet, do yourself a favor, because I mean, just as a piece of art, it's immaculate. And the final few moments in particular are just absolutely heartbreaking.
Hmm. This is coming up on my list too. I'll save a little commentary for when it comes up on my list. It's a little bit higher for me, but one thing I'll say, and I know you maybe share this sentiment a little bit as of late, sometimes the word masterpiece gets thrown around a little bit by,
Mhm.
in the film critic community. This is a masterpiece of cinema.
Yes.
This is pure. I mean, it literally is. And there's two on my
Mhm.
list that I feel like could be categorized as that, and there should be no reason that should be shrugged at. So,
It's one of those films where it's not number one or number two for me. Obviously, it's number four, but that's my personal list. If
sure.
you're asking me or trying to figure out, take my own personal opinion out of it, which films do I think would deserve to be put up there with some of the best of all time and be regarded as a masterpiece, like you said,
Hmm.
this completely fits the bill and checks off
Absolutely.
not only a ton of boxes, but also maybe unveils new boxes that you weren't even thinking of
Right.
before.
Right. And that's kind of a point I wanted to make. I agree with you 100%. It really kind of it kind of almost like mastered a lot of the things cinematically they think about. You mentioned cinematography, which jumps out right away. Obviously, the direction, the performances, a lot of things that go into making a film. The editing in this film is flawless. But it's like there's just a little extra to this movie too, and it's just so special. Kind of like how you said, the way it plays out so subtly, and it makes you a part of the proceedings. It's almost like I mean, yes, it's telling you a story, of course, because that's what it is, but it almost makes you a part of the story the way that you're kind of experiencing this movie. It was a very moving experience for me seeing it.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on the last frame, of this movie in the theater. I mean, it was like absolutely just awe inspiring. I love this movie so much. It's also on my list. So great pick at number four. My number four is a little bit different. And, it's funny I'm having you on for this episode, Matt, because I can remember texting you. I don't know if you're going to
Mhm.
remember this. It's been a few years, but I texted you when I went to see this because you had already seen it. And I think there was an embargo or whatever. So you were kind of like tight lipped on it. And I went to see it and I hit you up and you said something to me that has stuck with me in relation to this movie.
Oh
But I'll just
boy.
tell you I'll just tell you what it is real quick. And then your quote is kind of like been embedded in my mind ever since. But it's Michael Sarnowski's Pig, starring Nicolas Cage.
Okay.
Is my number four. I hit you up. And I said, dude, I just saw Pig, OMG, or just something super basic. And
Mhm.
you responded to me and you said that few films have taken you by surprise like that movie did. And
Yes.
if you can remember back to when that movie came out, there was very little like marketing campaign aside from maybe like one trailer. And you think to yourself, Nick Cage in a scenario where somebody's taken his pet or killed his pet pig, this is going to be a bloody rampage revenge story. Like, you know what I mean? You just kind of think that inherently.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and what we get, I mean, we get like kind of like hints of that behind the scenes kind of playing out in his
It's what
mind
I
and
thought it
different
was
things.
leading up to the whole time.
Yeah. But what we get
Like
is
the
just this.
setup in the movie, everything,
Yeah.
everything up until like the middle section. It was like, okay, this is playing out exactly as I
Right.
expected it would. And I
Right.
saw it,
And
like you said, I saw it way before a lot of other people did. Like, so when you said it was virtually no marketing, I had
Right.
No marketing, period.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what I was going to say is what you get is just this beautiful character study of
Hmm.
this guy. And well, I say beautiful, but I mean, it was told beautifully, but just like a tragic study of this man and the loneliness that he has in his life now. And he's left to reflect on his mistakes and his past and his loss and a lot of tremendous. I mean, Alex Wolff is fucking phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm just so much great stuff comes from this movie, but none of it is what I expected to walk away with. Like I didn't expect to walk away admiring this quiet, tender, tragic Nick Cage performance that mirrored like leaving Las Vegas. Like I just didn't expect that.
Hmm.
And it was just beautiful. Like I wish that you were talking about award traction. And I just wish that it would have been a little more prominent for this movie and for that role specifically. But yeah, I love Pig. I know you're a fan of it as well, but that's my number 4. What do you think, man?
I think it's one of Nicolas Cage's best performances to date, and I really think he should have been in the conversation for. I mean, he was in the conversation, but I think he should have been higher in the conversation for a Best Actor nomination. I remember the morning of the Oscars of the nominations, and I will never ever forget the original screenplay category announcement. And when Being the Ricardos was not mentioned, I was thinking to myself, "Oh my god, there's a film that they're going to announce last, and it's either going to be," and all of a sudden, like going through my brain, like in a few seconds, because there was like only over 2 other movies that they had to like announce before they got to it. But I remember thinking it's either Mass, Worst Person in the World, or Pig for screenplay, and I was thinking it was going to be Pig. But then it turned out to be Worst Person in the World, and I still, went crazy over it. But at
Sure,
the
yeah.
same time, Pig getting a screenplay nomination also would have been extremely worthy, in my opinion. I think it's such a strong and confident, bold directorial debut. And kind of like what you said before as well, it being this character study in a world that is not often explored within film and is done in a way where it is so beautifully conveyed through this character's tragedy. His
Mhm.
backstory is never fully revealed to us. There's no flashbacks or anything like that.
Right.
It's a very, very mature and confident piece of storytelling. And like I said, I think Nicolas Cage, this coupled along with a few other performances that he's given us in recent years, he literally went from being like a laughing stock, uh,
Yeah.
box office poison, straight to DVD, kind of, oh my God, like Nicolas Cage, what happened to your career? To all of a sudden, like rising up like a phoenix from the ashes. And now he's like
Mhm.
reborn all of a sudden. And people are just appreciating him so much at this stage in his career for literally anything he does.
Yeah.
And I think that that's really, really cool. And Pig has a large reason to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that seesaw kind of started tipping a little bit towards the other side, with like Mandy was amazing. I think that was maybe
Mhm.
the year before this. But yeah, I mean, the guy knows what he's doing, and kind of to your point about the screenplay, if he has the material there and he has a good script and he can really sink his teeth into these characters that have a story and aren't just there to, blow shit up or whatever. He can really do it, and he really proved me right there with Pig. So that's one of my favorites. That's my number 4. Matt, we're over to you, man. What do you got at number 3?
Okay, number 3 is a movie that I was greatly anticipating prior to its world premiere at the Cannes Film Festival in 2021. And then when it premiered and I heard the reactions to it, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be something special. This is going to be something different. It's Titan. This
Oh,
is a
nice.
movie that you want to talk about taking me by surprise.
Yeah.
Not only did it take me by surprise in terms of its content, but what really shocked me was the thematic commentary of what I thought the film was ultimately really about, which is multifaceted and has a lot of different interpretations to it. But this was no holds barred, take no prisoners, kind of almost like a fuck you kind of movie to whatever you think a standard conventional film is supposed
Right.
to be in terms of story beats, how it's supposed to unfold, the characters and how they are supposed to be likable. They are presented, both of them, the characters played by Vincent Lindon and Agatha Roussel. they are not presented in a manner that I think is inherently at first approachable, but at the same time, there is this vulnerability, there's a sadness, and there's kind of like cracks, if you will, that start to form in their characters and their personas that they are putting up for each other.
Mhm.
And through that connection that those two share, you end up like really, I think, just touching something that is so beautiful and profound by the end of it all. I will never forget when the movie was over, just like I had to catch my breath. I was
Yeah.
stunned sitting in my chair, grasping my armchair, like I had a sweat around my hands because
Yeah.
I just didn't know what we were doing at a certain point in terms of like where the story was going to go and where it was going to take me. What
Mm.
more could I possibly see that would surprise me? I'm trying really hard not to use expletives here, but there's
Sure.
some fucked up
You
shit in this
can.
movie. And I just didn't know like how far the envelope was going to get pushed,
Yeah.
And to me, that was extremely exciting. That's the thing, is that it's very rare when you see a piece of storytelling that is so highly original and
Right.
something that truly not only takes you by surprise, but you can walk out of it saying, I've never seen anything like that before. That is what makes that film so special for me.
I agree. I agree 100%. That's nothing like it. I mean, before
Nope.
it, since then, I mean, it is an absolutely unique. It's a wholly unique experience, and like you said, it is fucked up. And as a movie fan, I love that. I love the courageous vibe of that movie. So
Yep.
many things in that film, you would just think like, I can't believe they shot this. I can't
Nope.
believe I can't believe they laid this down. It made it through the, editing room floor, and here it is. It's just crazy. And there's something to be said for that. And it's a memorable movie that whether you like it or not, like you'll never forget it. I mean, it's just so crazy. I love it. I love the scene with the car for sure,
Of
which
course.
is one of the more memorable to take away from this movie. And
Mhm.
you're watching that and you're going, because that's pretty early on in the film, and you're going,
Yes.
wow, this here we go. And so yeah,
Well,
it kind of plays out
what I
from
think
there.
is very interesting is that the first act of this movie is a violent or shocking act one after another. And then the film kind of slows down a little bit, and those moments of unpredictable violence stop. But yet you're on edge throughout the entire movie, wondering if
Right,
that's ever going to come back. And then it starts to
right.
settle into this, this really awkward but yet sweet parental relationship drama between the two characters. And then by the time we get to the third act, like I said, you don't know where it's going
Right.
because you've just never seen anything like this before. So there's nothing to really compare it to. And you're kind of just along for the ride. And so still to this day, I think about that ending and I think about that final shot so much and
Oh
how
yeah.
much I just felt um it's very rare, like so rare that I'm stunned watching a movie.
Right.
And I know people use that term, like you were saying, oh, people use the term masterpiece. People say, oh, this is stunning. Oh, I was stunned watching it.
Right. But
No,
when you're literally
truly.
like, yeah,
Yeah. Like I literally was like,
exactly. Yeah. I was literally sitting there stunned for
yep.
what that word means. Yeah. No, I get it. Well, that's a little different than my number 3 pick, because my number 3 pick is much more quiet,
Okay.
much
Fair.
more not messing with you mentally. But it is a beautiful study of a time in Princess Di's life and Spencer. That's my number 3.
Nice.
Yeah, I love
Okay.
this. I love this
This
movie.
is
It
on
was
my
my favorite.
list too.
Yeah, great, great. It was my favorite movie of that year, and Kristen Stewart and her performance has a lot to do with it. I was just such a huge fan of it. I feel like it was the best performance that year. It, of course, did not win, but just the way I feel like in my review, I said something to the effect of like a delicate lunacy in the movie.
Mhm.
Like she was at her breaking point, like the entire runtime, but she never broke really. It was always
Right.
like right at that moment when somebody's about to explode, and she just kind of held herself there the whole time. And as an actress, I just really was drawn to that, and I really commended it. I just felt like internally you could see, and we got a couple scenes here and there. The joke that she makes about masturbating and some other things where she like goes out of that princess character, and you kind of see like, okay, maybe this is it. Maybe she's breaking here. But she kind of keeps it bottled up because of the pressures of the royal family and not really, and kind of having that internal battle. And you kind of felt for her the entire time because of that. And you wanted her to break free, especially knowing, what happened historically. So it was just such a tragic, beautiful film by Pablo Larraín, who also did Jackie, which I also love, which I know is divisive, but I love that movie.
Yep.
And I feel like, Natalie Portman is Jackie in that movie and Kristen Stewart here as Princess Di. There's similarities there in the storytelling, and you kind of see that through his lens too. You can kind of get those parallels. So I love Spencer. Like I said, it was my favorite movie of that year, and it's my number 3 in the Neon catalog. Since it's on your list, did you want to go ahead and talk about it?
It's number 2.
Oh, okay. So it's up next for you. So go ahead and talk a little bit about it.
It also was my number 1 favorite film of 2021 as well. I thought it was the perfect merger of performer and artist coming together to create something that, I do not like your typical standard biopic film. And there has been so many recent examples. And so anytime that a biopic does something different than what we are conditioned nowadays to expect from the genre, I welcome that wholeheartedly. My favorite types of biopics are the ones that just defy conventional standard. And Spencer totally did away with that and presented something that was at times nightmarish, at times was defiant in terms of presenting this strong, rebellious character who, like you said, was just kind of like holding it all together emotionally for the love of her children, really, while she was just crumbling on the inside. I thought it was such a beautiful performance from Kristen Stewart. Absolutely heart aching. I am truly like, I was so empathetic towards that character and the way that she portrayed it, whether it was real or not. And the way that the movie does play with its facts, I know has always been something that's been up for debate, but I find, once again, that what makes the movie special is that it's not a straight biopic and that it does not necessarily obey the facts. What it does is it instead is trying to get at the essence of who Princess Diana ultimately was and trying to convey that through not just through Kristen Stewart's performance and not just through the screenplay, but also the way that Pablo Larraín shoots the movie, the way the movie is edited. This is a film where every single craft department is firing on all cylinders to present something that is a unique vision. And I really appreciated that wholeheartedly. So I will forever defend this movie. I know that there are people who despise this movie, and I understand that, but at the same time, I think that what the movie is saying ultimately is what counts more than even how it says it. Honestly, like I think that people need to look past the how sometimes, and really just kind of understand like what the filmmakers like intentions ultimately are a little bit better here. Everybody gets held up on, oh, they didn't do this correctly. Oh, she would never have done this, and
well, the
it's
fact that it's an unconventional biopic, like you said, kind of, kills that argument a little bit, because that's also how I see it. I mean, it's not your conventional like timeline.
But some people just can't get over that,
Right. No, I know. Yeah, for sure. So do you think K-Stu should have got the Oscar here? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, yeah. What was
Jessica
it?
Chastain was
year,
my
right? Yeah.
Chastain was my number 2 that year, and I didn't have a problem with her winning in the end. So much so that like I was such a Kristen Stewart defender all season long that when I resigned myself to recognizing that Chastain was going to win, the Kristen Stewart fans started to come after me saying, "Oh, how could you abandon us? Oh, you were never a true fan. Oh, you jumped
Oh
ship."
man.
And I was like, "No, listen, at the end of the day, like I could predict Kristen Stewart and be wrong, or I could just predict Jessica Chastain and be right, and I would rather be right than anything when it comes to predictions. But at the same time, I like Chastain in Eyes of Tammy Faye. I didn't hate her in that movie, so I was totally okay with her winning. If it couldn't be Kristen, I'm glad it was her.
Sure. Yeah. There's a difference between preference and predictions. So
Tell that to the internet.
Exactly right. But yeah, Kristen Stewart was definitely my preference that year as well. So that's my number
Mhm.
three, and that was your number two. So we might be going crossover crazy here. My number two is Portrait of a Lady on Fire,
Nice.
which we already kind of talked about. The cinematography, the direction, the last shot of this movie is just literally the most heartbreaking piece of cinema. Like it's just you just feel so many emotions from what you had been watching the prior 2 hours, and it's just shot so beautifully, and the love story was so tender and real. This is a movie that like is so grandiose at like visually, but it's rooted in reality. Like still kind of feel like you can kind of connect to what's going on, regardless of where you might be in your life. And I did, like I said, it moved me when I saw it. I've seen it a few times since, and every time I see it, I feel like those emotions come back for me because the storytelling is just so powerful, visually. Um, the performances you mentioned as well. I mean, everything we talked about already. But this is, in my opinion, a masterpiece, and so is my number one. So that's my number two. We cross over a little bit there on Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And I will let you go first, although I'm almost positive we matched up on our number ones, Matt, because, well, I think we did. Go ahead. What's your number one neon film?
I mean, I would be shocked if we didn't have the same number one here.
Yeah.
Truly, it's Parasite.
Yes, it is. It's
It
fucking,
has
of
to be
course,
Parasite.
without question, it's absolutely Parasite. You go ahead
And
and talk a little bit about it.
you know, it's a really amazing and incredible thing where sometimes you watch a movie where it doesn't have to be the most epic story ever told. It doesn't have to be the most expensive movie of all time. It doesn't need to be the longest movie. It doesn't need to have the biggest stars. It doesn't need to have all these things that sometimes people feel that a best picture winner or a film that's just going to position itself as one of the greatest of all time needs to have. You just need a killer good script, a director with a singular vision who knows what the hell he's doing,
Mhm.
and a great cast. They say casting is, one of the elements of the filmmaking process that if you can nail that, you're pretty much already halfway there, or if not more
Yeah.
so, to creating a great movie. The cast of Parasite, the writing, the direction, the editing, the score, the production design, literally, it's one of those just rare moments where you know, sometimes you walk out of a movie and you say, "Yeah, that was great. It's one of the best of the year," or you go, "Man, that's my favorite movie of the year." But I think it's even rarer to walk out of a film and immediately recognize, without a rewatch, that that was one of the most in sync, perfectly calibrated best films I've ever seen. Period.
Mhm.
Usually, a rewatch has to confirm that, or
Sure. Yeah.
over time, you'll just start hearing a lot more people chiming in and groupthink takes over. And then we all just assume, okay, yeah, well, everybody thinks it. So that's clearly it. But
Right.
Parasite was a movie that right from the get go, from its world premiere at Cannes, everyone just instantly knew right away that this was something very extraordinary. And Bong Joon Ho, in terms of appreciation for where he was at that stage in his career, it was like the perfect timing for him. It was also such an incredible award season story. It being a film that people wanted to have in the Best Picture conversation. Everyone was fighting for it to get into that conversation. The critics were pushing hard for it. And
Mhm.
then it became all of a sudden in contention to possibly win, but it was never at any point the front runner. So it was always
Right.
the underdog. So when it ultimately did have its historic Oscar night as the first and only to this day international film to win the Best Picture Oscar, the joy, the collective joy from people all over the world. I'm
Yeah.
sure you saw reaction videos everywhere on every corner of the internet.
Just
It was like
elation.
one of those very rare moments where everybody was united. This was like, you know,
Mhm.
I feel like even though I wasn't alive during this time, I was wondering, is this what it felt like when something like The Godfather won Best Picture or something, where
Right.
everybody just went, "Yes," and, like, and we
R
all agreed, you know? I mean,
Right. Sure.
maybe not, because Cabaret is pretty awesome too. So I'm sure there were some Cabaret defenders with The Godfather. But,
Sure.
like I said, even like the 1917 Once Upon a Time in Hollywood fans who would rank that movie higher, even they were like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
cool. You know,
Yeah. No.
I tip my hat.
Yeah. No.
So
I agree.
there's just so many positive vibes, even just thinking back to outside of the movie. Like I said, from its world premiere at Cannes to its award season run to Oscar night. But even then, in the aftermath, like since then, just the adoration and the respect that movie has cultivated in a very short amount of time since its release. It's only been 4 years, but already people just regard it as, once again, that using that M word, a modern masterpiece. And
Yep.
I find that every time I watch it, it's funny, it's exciting, it's got really great thematic social commentary, and man, that scene where they go down into the basement for the first time, I
Hmm.
will never, ever, ever forget the gasps from the audience of, before the reveal of what ultimately is down there, this
Hmm.
like dreadful feeling of what is happening, like what is about to happen, like where
Yeah.
is this story going? And even though like nobody was verbalizing that, it was a feeling you could just feel in the air with an audience watching this. It was magical, and the whole experience of not just watching the movie, championing the movie, and then seeing its award season run. All of it
Yeah.
collectively, just a magical time.
Yeah. No. It's my number one. Also, I mean, I agree with literally everything you just said. I couldn't have said it better myself. The basement reveal about halfway through this movie. I mean, obviously, I love it. Obviously, it's mind blowing, like you said, and it does require that kind of like collective gasp from whoever you're watching it with, especially on that first time. But there's just something to be said for the art of cinema being able to do that to an audience. And it had been, in my opinion, a fucking long time since that had happened collectively.
Mhm.
And if you didn't have this movie spoiled for you and you saw that initially, and I think you actually posted something on Twitter this week about, what movies really turned the tables on you. I can't remember how you phrased it, but
Yeah, movies where like halfway through, I
right.
mean, I'm gonna phrase it the wrong way, but it's like it's going one way, and then halfway
Mhm.
through, it's like dramatic left turn, and all of a
Right.
sudden, the whole movie is changed.
Right. The whole
Parasite is
movie.
that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it. And it had been so long since we'd really gotten that as an audience, I felt like, because it was a completely different movie after that, and it
Hmm.
kind of like the narrative shifted and the plot points and the center focus shifted and everything was not what we'd been watching before, really. I mean, all those characters were still there and the societal commentary was still there, but like we were kind of focused on this fucked up story that we were now introduced to as a result of some of the other things that we've been watching leading up to it. We could talk about this movie all day as far as the craft goes, but I mean, like the production design on this movie, how we're talking about the social commentary, but how the family is basically in the sewer, and the rain and it is literally coming into their home, and then they have to go up. And when I say go uphill, I mean literally like the steep embankment to get to the house that they're infiltrating there. That the parasite, of course. So I just love all the different things that are seemingly not a big deal, but when you kind of put it all together, it literally creates this beautiful, it's like when you have the puzzle pieces, when you're putting a puzzle together. And when it's done, and the credits roll and the puzzle is put together, it's just this beautiful thing that Bong Joon-ho and the team created. And it's literally going to go down as one of the greatest movies of all time, in my opinion. I think it already has. And that's only at 4 years old. People laughed at me. I had a few of my friends on for my best movies of the decade that we did in like January of
Mhm.
2020. And Parasite was in my top 10 movies of the decade. And it had only been out for like 6 months at that point. And they're like, oh, dude, what the hell are you talking about? Like, and that was before the Oscars and before everything. So,
Yeah.
but I kind of like what you said. Like I saw it and I just knew like this is not a normal movie. This is like
It's very
something
it
upper
is
echelon.
I haven't had that experience happen like that often. Eh, and there are some movies that I could maybe rattle off where I walked out and I just knew, like, I just
Sure.
knew right away. Social Network is one,
Sure.
like right away walking out, I just instantly knew that was something special. Um, Parasite, I felt that, and even trying to think of like other ones now, it's tough. It's like,
Hmm.
even great films like Mad Max Fury Road, I will forever give credence over to those who say, well, it's kind of plotless. Oh, it is repetitious, or whatever people want to say about Mad Max Fury Road. And it's like, okay, fine. I dare anyone to tell me anything that's wrong with Parasite.
Right.
What can you say?
Right. I agree. I agree. So there we go. Our number ones matching up on Parasite. I saw that coming a mile away when we
Yeah.
knew we were doing the episode. But like we're saying, it's the best in recent memory. It's one of the
Mhm.
best of all time. It almost had to be our number one. So there you go, Parasite. Yeah, we matched up on our number ones. Matt, we're going to take a quick promo break, and when we come back, we're going to list our honorable mentions real quick, 6 through 10, and then we will give some shout outs to the fans online and see what they had to say. So everybody sit tight. We will be right back. All right, man, you good? Sorry, my son's been sick, and I think he's giving me something, so I'm
Oh
like
no, I'm sorry.
all gravelly and stuff. Sorry about my voice, but
It's okay.
all right, man, I'll come back in here in a second. We'll just give our honorable mentions, okay?
Yeah, no worries.
Welcome back in, guys. As I said pre-break, I got my buddy Matt here from Next Best Picture, and we just talked about our favorite films from Neon Studios. And I tell you, we had some good ones in there, man. We did kind of go crossover heavy though. Well, not too bad. We had two. We had two
Yeah,
crossovers, so that's not too bad.
I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. That's less than I thought, actually. So I knew you love Spencer too, so I kind of saw that coming. But yeah, that's fine. All right, man. Why don't you give him some honorable mentions, Matt? What five didn't quite crack your top five that you have over there? You want to shout out?
Sure. Am I gonna just list all five, or what do you want me to do?
Yeah, just list them 6 through 10 real quick.
So, okay, 6 through 10. Number 6 is Flea, a
One I
movie
haven't seen.
that, oh, you need to watch that.
Okay.
There's a reason it got nominated for Best Documentary, International, and Animated Feature. Should have gotten a Best Picture nomination, in my opinion, all
Wow.
within the same year.
Okay.
I mean, if you think that the movie is one of the best animated, one of the best documentary, one of the best international, why wouldn't it be one of the best pictures of the year?
Sure. Yeah. Makes sense.
So I highly, highly recommend that if you haven't had a chance to see that yet. Truly.
Okay.
Then after that, I would say is The Worst Person in the World,
Mm-hmm.
a movie that has risen for me considerably since I last saw it. At the time when I first saw it, I liked it quite a bit. I thought it was really, really well written. I thought it was well acted. But there is something about the relatability of that character. Because once I got past the frustration that I had with that character,
Mm-hmm.
then I started to peel back the layers a little bit more. And I started to really appreciate more so what the film was doing. And it's not enough to still crack my top five, but definitely has risen up a few notches since my first initial viewing of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Then
love
I
that
would
one too.
say next up would be I, Tonya with
Mm-hmm.
Margot Robbie, Sebastian Stan, Paul Walter Hauser. First time I saw him in anything too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what an energetic, fun movie in a way that I never would have thought was going to be possible with a film about Tanya Harding. Also, too, a film that I thought did a really decent job of portraying domestic abuse,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways, also just opening up our eyes to not necessarily having sympathy for Tanya Harding, but just a better insight into what exactly she had to go through, especially with her relationship with her mother, played by Allison Janney, who I defend that Oscar win, even though
Oh,
she
yeah.
wasn't my personal preference. I don't think she's bad. And I'm glad that Allison Janney has an Oscar at the end of the day, regardless. Um, After that, I know he's like persona non grata nowadays, but man, when I saw Sam Levinson's Assassination Nation back in 2018, oh my God, was really captivated
Mhm.
by that story. I love the way it was directed. I was just so, you know what? Like, to me, that was just such a rebellious film. And I understood why it pissed people off. My response to that at the time was good. Let it piss people off, because
Right.
the stuff that that movie was talking about really spoke to me at the time. Um, I completely understand, like, Sam Levinson is not everyone's cup of tea, and I have had some serious issues with some of his work since then.
Mhm.
But at the time, watching Assassination Nation, I couldn't get enough of it. I loved it, and I still like it till this day. And then my
That's cool.
last one here is a fairly new one, but I wanted to make sure I threw a documentary in here because I think Neon does a great job with their documentary
Mhm.
features. Moon Age Daydream
Yeah.
is a doc that I saw in IMAX in the movie theater. Transcendent experience. Truly. Felt like I was on drugs while watching the movie without taking drugs. And
Yeah.
any movie that can make me feel that while I'm watching it, aces.
Did something
Thank
right.
you
Yeah,
for
for
giving me
sure.
the drugs without giving me the drugs. Thank you for
Right.
that.
Right. I don't have the hangover after. Yeah, that's great. So you mentioned a few of mine, but we didn't talk about my number 6, which would have been Palm Springs. Just such a charming and dear. This movie came along like during COVID, so it streamed on Hulu because people were afraid to go to the theaters and everything was shut down and whatever.
Mhm.
It just hit at the right time. Like it was just a
Yep.
movie that made me finally feel good about like watching a movie without any kind of COVID protocols going on in my head.
It
And I
was
love
funny too because
Sandberg.
we were all going through, the repetition of lockdown. And they said, the filmmakers, like, we didn't plan any of this. This is
Right.
all just coincidental, the release of our film and it being about being stuck in these loops.
Yep.
That I think Palm Springs is actually one of the strongest rom-coms to come out in the
Yeah.
last 10, 20 years.
Yeah, I really dug that movie. And I think the rewatchability is pretty high on that too. I love the characters. Like you connect, you know what I mean? They don't get on your nerves. Like I think they're both cute and charming and funny. And it's an interesting spin on that kind of like Groundhog Day time loop scenario. So I love Palm Springs and I'm glad it's streaming on Hulu whenever I feel like watching it because I love it.
Yeah.
You mentioned my number 7 and my number 8, but it's I also have I, Tanya and The Worst Person in the World. Those are my 7 and 8. My number 9 and
Nice.
10 we did not talk about yet, but my number 9 is Petite Maman,
Nice.
also from Celine Sciamma. Uh, I think her I think her style of filmmaking does something to me emotionally because this is another one that I just was like in the feels the whole time, just like with Portrait, and it just really captivated me. This kind of genuine story of friendship, but there's kind of like the story's kind of told in a way that you think this something's not going to be what it seems like it is, but it's just so beautiful. It's just such a charming, innocent story. And I love the runtime too. I think it was like barely over an hour. It was really, I remember that it being really
It's really
quick.
short. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the only other one on my list is a French horror film called Revenge.
Oh,
You've seen,
yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Love that movie, dude. I saw that in the theater. That's actually the very first movie I saw when my local Alamo Draft House opened up.
Oh,
So
wow.
I have like a special connection there too because that's my favorite movie theater. And it's streaming on Shutter now, but it's just this really cool like revenge story. I mean, it's basically this badass bitch gets revenge on the two guys that basically raped and tried to kill her, and
Mhm.
she just goes back and makes sure she takes care of business. So
It's
it's
a very
got horror
simple
elements to it
movie.
too. Yeah,
Very, very
no,
simple, but
for sure.
effective.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So there you go. Those are our favorite neon films. Matt, to wrap up every week, I just head over to social media to see what the fans had to say in the old suggestion box. So I just said, what is your favorite movie from Neon Studios? And I gave them the list of films to choose from.
Mhm.
Let's see what they had to say over there. Patron and friend of the show, Jared, said Colossal and I, Tanya. Colossal was the very first movie they ever did. Did you know that?
Yes, I did actually, and
Are you
it's,
a fan of that one?
yeah, and especially, like, I was actually little bit of a flex here. I was talking with Jason Sudeikis a couple of nights ago, and we were talking about Colossal, and I was telling him how much I appreciated that he plays an asshole in Colossal, and how that should just be a signal to everyone at the range that Jason Sudeikis has, playing a role like that, and then seeing him in something like Ted Lasso. And I feel like not enough people have seen Colossal to know that. So
Right. Yeah, that's a cool point, actually. Yeah. Joey Mills says Colossal. He also says Revenge and Pig. Those would be his
nice.
picks. Let's see if there's any that we haven't mentioned here. Tony Dobish says Memories of Murder. I haven't seen that one.
Oh, wow. It's funny because that's a Neon movie now.
Oh,
But
okay.
at the time of its release, it predates the creation of Neon. So I wouldn't think to count that, but at the same time, yes. Like now, yes. Big
I haven't seen
yes.
that. I haven't seen that one. Yeah.
Oh man. Listen, if you
Need it.
love Bong Joon-ho and you like Parasite, oh my
Yeah.
God. This is
Check it
Bong
out.
Joon-ho basically doing a serial killer cop procedural film.
Okay. I have to check that one out. I need to put that one to the
You
top of the
definitely
list.
do.
Tony also says Fire of Love, which was one of my favorite documentaries of this past year.
Yeah, that
It's a
was
good one.
good.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Let's see. Josh Ragland, patron and friend of the show, says I, Tanya, Parasite, and Palm Springs, but he has a lot of blind spots in the Neon filmography. Those are some good ones, though.
No, those are good.
Brad, patron. Yeah, I know. Those are all good. Brad, patron and friend of the show, says Assassination Nation. There you go. He also says
I'm not alone.
Possessor. Let's see if there's any. Let's see what I'm scanning through here. Matt, Drew Hallam, patron of the show, says Little Monsters. We think is that that's
Yes.
Lupita, right?
Yeah. No. Not Lupita. That was with Tessa Thompson.
Tessa Thompson. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't seen that one either, man. Another blind spot for me. Let's see. We've mentioned those. A lot of Parasites, by the way.
Oh, I'm sure.
Let's see. David Powell, patron of the show, says the best in recent years for him by a fair margin.
And for the record, I confused Little Monsters with Little Woods, so that's my apologies.
So
Little
it was
Monsters,
the one with Lupita.
Little Monsters was one with Lupita Nyong'o, and it was a zombie.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my bad. Sorry.
No, that's the one I was thinking of. No, that's fine. Yeah. David Powell says by a fair margin, Infinity Pool. What do you think? What did you think about that one this year?
James, where you going, James?
Oh, she's so good.
I cannot get that out of my head. I
love
forever entrenched in my brain is the sound of Mia Goth just going crazy in that movie.
God, I love her.
I thought it was technically his best film, Cronenberg, that he had made to date in terms of visuals and sound. But narratively, I had some issues with it, and I thought that the script could have been worked on just a little bit more.
David also mentions one that I haven't seen and frankly haven't heard of. So I'm sorry, but I'm assuming you saw it, but it's called Manos.
Yeah, Manos. Mm-hmm,
Manos.
Mm-hmm. Saw that at Sundance the year it came out as well. And that film, if I remember correctly, I think Columbia submitted it for Best International Feature, but it didn't get nominated in the end.
Okay.
Very, very gorgeously well shot. And Julianne Nicholson's also in it too. I didn't love it as much as some other people did, but I thought it was a really what's the word I'm looking for here? Striking vision. Yeah.
All right, cool. Another one I'll definitely need to check out. Let's see if there's a few more that we didn't mention. Jay Talbot says 3 Identical Strangers.
That is a document, like that's like my favorite kind of documentary are the ones where they take these sharp left turns and then all of a sudden like they transform into something completely different than what you were initially set up to watch in the beginning.
Right.
Something like the Imposter is also like that. Just any documentary that kind of like just takes these unexpected turns, and I thought 3 Identical Strangers, the way that story was presented, it was like one of the most shocking docs that I had ever seen up until that point.
Sure. Amanda Edmond. Now this one didn't get mentioned at all tonight until this very second, which is somewhat surprising because it's in the conversation as of late. But Triangle of Sadness.
Sure, yeah, love Triangle of Sadness.
Yeah, great movie,
Hmm.
man. Let's see. Lindsay Dunn, friend of mine, says Spencer, Pig, Parasite, and The Lodge, which is also another one that has not gotten mentioned yet tonight, and it's also a horror movie. So I should have probably had that in my in my list because I do love that movie. Riley Keough. Were you a fan of the Lodge?
I liked it. You know,
Yeah,
at that time, I was very much a Hereditary is a masterpiece, and pretty much any horror movie that's going to come out over the next year is going to pale in comparison.
sure.
So
Yeah,
I thought The Lodge was good. You know, I didn't think it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen, or anything like that. I do remember seeing it at Sundance at midnight, and I remember being very tired. And there was a jump scare in that movie that scared the ever living crap out of me. It made me jump, and I was awake then throughout the rest of the movie after that. So it was like the shot of espresso that I needed.
nice, nice. And we'll end on my buddy Michael Hill and patron of the show. He says he's only heard of about 5 of their movies, and the 2 that he loves are Parasite and I, Tanya. So I think it's going to be tough to not go out on a higher note than that. As Matt and myself, both had Parasite at our number one as well. And we both gave a little love to I, Tanya also. So there you
Absolutely.
go. Matt, we did A24 a couple of years ago. We did Neon this time around. I'll have you back soon, and we'll, I don't know what, do
Yeah, like
Annapurna.
who's
I
next
don't
at
know.
this point? Yeah, right. Briar Cliff Entertainment. Let's go.
Yeah, Bleecker Street. I don't know. Figure something
Yeah,
out.
why not? I like Bleecker
Oh,
Street. You know,
yeah, yeah,
they
no
fight the
doubt.
good fight over there.
But I really do appreciate it, man. And I had to wait till award season was over, but it means so much to me that you carved out time to come hang out with me tonight and talk movies. I love doing it every time I get you on the show. And as I said at the top, if you guys are into movies in any way whatsoever, you need to be following Next Best Picture. I know Matt just launched his YouTube channel as well. And definitely during award season, give this guy all the love because he puts so much effort into it. And I've had the opportunity to have even more of the NBT team here on Peas as well. And you guys are great. So just tell them where they can find you real quick, Matt, and look you guys up, buddy.
Sure. So everyone can find me on the internet at Next Best Picture. Doesn't matter what social media platform you put that into. We're going to pop up somewhere, unless if we don't have a social media profile for it. But that's nextbestpicture.com, where we're always on the lookout for what is going to be the next Best Picture Oscar winner. We do a podcast pretty frequently where we do reviews, interviews with people within the industry. And then we also have a weekly talk show as well, where we talk about various news and current goings within Hollywood, and of course with award season. And now that we're getting into television at the moment, we're also exploring what's
Mm,
happening right now in the Emmy world. So your favorite television shows are also getting coverage over at nextbestpicture.com.
I love it, man. All right. So what's the next best picture? I'm putting you on the spot. It's Barbie, right? It's got to be Barbie.
No, because the Academy will never go for a film called Barbie as the next
Oh,
best
man.
picture.
What do you think
Um,
it is, though? What
I
did you have?
For the record, I'm very much looking forward to Barbie. I cannot wait.
Sure, sure.
Oh man,
I'll snip this part out. March of 2023. You
I
said it.
if you had to ask me today, and this is gonna sound so lame when I say it, but it has to be Killers of the Flower Moon right now
Oh, all right.
because
Yeah, sure.
because it's got Apple behind it. They're gonna push it extremely hard. Scorsese is he's Scorsese.
Hmm.
That goes without saying. And I think that the film has the right blend of important social commentary, which is something that the Academy seems to really be embracing nowadays about their Best Picture winners,
Hmm.
while also, of course, it's going to have the pedigree behind it to be just probably a fantastic movie. And if I'm wrong, well, you can't hold it against me. It's only March.
No, it's definitely it's a good option. I don't know. I'm gonna do a predictions video probably like in June or July. So until then, I'm just kind of soaking it all in. I don't really know. I mean, I haven't really thought
We don't
about what the
really
next.
like, honestly, we don't really dive into it either until we get to the summer.
Yeah, it's just so hard, man.
Because right now like listen, we just came off of one. Let's focus on the Emmy stuff right now. When there's a worthy contender that comes out in theaters, believe me, you'll hear about it. Right
Yeah, for
now,
sure.
like a lot of people are excited about John Wick and could it receive a nomination anywhere because the John Wick franchise has never been nominated for a single Oscar.
Which is crazy.
Um, And then everybody's talking about Air, of a new Ben Affleck film, and could
Yeah,
that be a
yeah,
contender? It could be.
yeah.
So there's always going to
Everything
be
everywhere came out in March. People don't forget that, so you never
Top
know. It
Gun
could
and
already
Elvis
be
came out in
out.
May.
That's right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I know where I'll be tuning in to find out, man. I'll over at Next Best Picture. All his information will be down below, guys. Make sure you click that and check Matt out if you're not already. Matt, once again, man, thanks so much for being here. I really do appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right, guys, we will be back next week. We'll have another top 5. Until then, everybody take care. All right, buddy. Let me just don't hang up quite yet because your file is going to upload.
Okay.
It usually only takes